Good morning. Let's settle in. Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Okay. A little disheveled this morning as I'm searching for specific things and bustling around. Let's get that microphone moved. So I'm going to collect myself, and you can as well, even if you're already collected. And breathe in and out of the nose. Find our meditation posture. If you're in a cushion or on a mat on the floor, with your legs crossed or sitting on your knees, you may want to put a folded towel or block or extra pillow just underneath the sit bone, the bottom of your bum. And that just helps give a slight assist to the lower back to not be strained and allow the spine to lengthen and straighten a little bit easier. We're going to want to be in a position that we can stay in for a little while. So the key to longevity is balance. All right. Let's find balance. If you're in a chair like I am, I have my feet flat to the floor. I'm sitting just in front of the back of the chair so that I'm not leaning into it. Shoulder blades are rolled open so that they slightly come together without tension, opening the space in the front of our bodies and opening our hearts. And it's okay to smile. Let that smile come across your face. And as we begin to calm our bodies and our minds, notice your breath. Where I am, I can allow the sound of the rain as a rhythmic sound to be the guide into my body, and it's like a singing bowl or a meditative song. It's just a sound. And in this morning's meditation, we're going to have a central focus. This morning we're going to focus on the Buddha. So begin with the awareness of the breath. The feeling of the diaphragm pulling the air in and pushing the air out. Engaging your core muscles, but not straining them. Just notice that you feel them working. Bring the awareness into the lungs and the chest as it expands and contracts with each life-giving breath. We're going to put our notice into the throat, and the neck. Are those muscles relaxed? And the jaw. The back of the mouth, sinuses. To the nasal passages, the nostrils, and the tip of the nose. Now bring the awareness from the nose just above to the third eye. Bring all of your focus, all of your attention to your third eye. And as we're here with our focus, with the eyes closed but directed towards the third eye, notice if you perceive shadow and light. And an ever-changing shape just in front of your face, seen through the third eye. and watch the dance of your perception. Now picture of the shadow and light. You begin to see a form take shape. It begins as a glowing light, slightly blurred. And as it comes into focus, you begin to see the Buddha. And as we sit with the Buddha just in front of us, we recognize we are at the feet of the Buddha. And in this moment of shared silence, we are the student. What is your lesson? What is your perception from the foot of the Buddha? What do you see with your eyes closed? What do you hear in the silence? What do you feel in the absence of touch? As you open your eyes now, come back to your body awareness and the awareness of the space around. You ground yourself back into this perception. A drink of tea, a drink of water. Maybe a nice stretch. Apologies for the sounds of my cracking bones. Didn't mean to do that directly into the microphone. But there it is. That's just a few minutes of meditating on form of the formless, and meditating on the teacher. No. So the meditating upon the teacher, this is directly from Patanjali. This is one of the sutras describing one of the types of meditation. And if we remember, I know it's been a couple weeks because there was sickness last week. That Patanjali was talking about how we can cultivate attitudes towards what would be the distractions of our mind. And he says in Sutra 33, by cultivating attitudes of friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard toward the wicked, the mind stuff retains its undisturbed calmness. Right? Disregard is not the same thing as rejection. Okay? This is where semantics become important. This is where it becomes important that we start to be clear about what it is that we are striving towards. Now, of course, do you need these teachings? No. Each of us are born with the same elements and the same abilities, and thought doesn't necessarily make those different in any way. However, we are also born into a world that quickly puts us into a state of unconsciousness, right? The waking dream. And when I say the waking dream, I mean that we are always on the verge of waking, and we have moments of consciousness. Not sleeping and being awake. Those are physical needs of our body, right? But I'm speaking on a level of conscious awareness. Conscious awareness. How aware we are of who we are. And in my experience, my personal experience, the times when I am more aware of myself, more aware of who I am, I can be more aware of the effect that I have on the world. I can be more aware of the effect that I allow the world to have on me. And in doing so, I can enter into my relationships with more confidence that I am going to connect. There will be less room in that awareness for the disconnection that comes from not knowing who you are. And so, as we are studying these things, the thoughts that we have about them, the thinking that we do, helps gear our mind away from the scattered inconsequence of our existence and allows the mind to settle enough to allow the subtle body forms to begin to appear. Right? We know the unsubtle body forms, the physical body. We know that. Right? We can feel that. We can see that. We can perceive that. We can explain that to someone else. We know the mind body. We can talk about that. We can talk about thoughts. We can talk about feelings and emotions. And that's not just the head mind. That's the whole mind. The mind, the gut brain, the heart brain, the head brain. All of those different places or sources that we understand for being centers of experience, material experience. Feelings and emotions are part of that. We can't see a feeling or an emotion without really good neurological brain mapping. We can see when someone is feeling an emotion, what's happening inside of their brains, but I can't hold an emotion in my hand and show it to you. However, I can explain to you and say to you what an emotion is, and you'll probably understand. So that's a little more subtle than the physical body, but it's not quite as subtle. It's pretty well understood. The spirit body is one that we have a slightly less cohesive understanding of than we do the mind body, right? But we know that it's there for many of us. Now, this is not a debate or a contentious position on spirituality. That doesn't matter to me. If you consider yourself a spiritual person or not, that's fine. That's okay. For me, my spiritual practice is the practice of communicating and learning from what I understand is beyond the physical body and beyond the mind body into another level of existence, far more subtle than the physical body. And then the self, this consciousness that is witnessing all of this. That's the most subtle body. Right? That's the most subtle place where I am. And because of its subtlety, or subtleness, because of its isness of subtlety, it can often be overlooked and dismissed. And in doing so, we are missing on a very large source and place of perception. So these practices that we're studying now are awakening the subtle body. And at this point, Patanjali is giving us instruction. And he goes through telling us how to concentrate on specific parts of the mind and how to then, once concentrating on the mind, allow the perceptions to shift and change and allowing the mind to relax. These are basically the handbook for awakening the consciousness by calming the mind. Okay? You got to be real still and quiet. It's like, when you're bird watching or you're going on a walk and you spot a deer and you didn't hear the deer coming, you didn't smell the deer, your senses weren't attuned in the way that maybe your ancestors' senses were, maybe. And you are walking the path and all of a sudden you are just a few feet from a beautiful deer, right? A doe and her fawns. There's 3 of them there. Immediately you stop. And you still the body so as to not disrupt the deer. You're watching this interaction play out of a mother deer and young deer. And they're getting a drink from a small brook, and maybe they're eating some fresh shoots. Whatever they're doing, you understand in that moment to be still so that you can continue to observe this interaction. And if you're with a friend and they're unaware and they're talking, you might go, "Hey, shh, 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 look, look." So in the knowledge in that moment, that stillness, quiet and calm is the way to observe this beautiful dance that's very subtle, that's something that you weren't prepared to see, but is there. The same thing is happening right now in the way that we are coming on this path towards stumbling upon our deep inner self in these moments, and we go, shh, quiet, be still. So that in that stillness, the subtlety of this self that's beyond the physical body, beyond the mental body, even beyond the spiritual body, right? It can thrive. It can open up. And so Patanjali is that friend who spotted this and is telling us, shh, watch, listen. And he's teaching us how. And last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, the meditation that we had was concentrating on light, on the blissful, all-encompassing light of the self. Right? That was Sutra number 36 in the first book. Well, this week, Sutra 37, vîtarâgavayam, Shayam, pardon me, va cittam. Vita is free, raga is attachment, vishayam is objects of the senses, va is or, and cittam is mind stuff. And the translation is, or by concentrating on a great soul's mind, which is totally freed from attachment to sense objects. This is a way to calm and still the mind, and to calm the body, and to allow the subtle form to take shape. And we're back to Satchidananda's translation and purport. And this is a brief paragraph, but I'll go ahead and read the whole paragraph because I think Satchidananda really had something good here about this particular sutra. Why would I focus on somebody else? If I'm trying to focus on me, I'm trying to learn about me. Why would I spend time in meditation focusing on the Buddha or Jesus or the guru or whatever, right? That's most likely what some of Patanjali's students were saying. And I'm sure that there were even students who were saying, hey, I think this guy wants us to focus on him. I think he's maybe got a little bit of an ego issue. Maybe this guy's trying to start a cult. Well, no thanks, mister. Yeah, sure. I'm sure that happened. Happens today, right? Happens today. Somebody begins to share teachings or begins to share the lessons that they have learned. Okay, that's what a teaching is. If you're sharing a teaching, you're not the teacher, you're just the one sharing the lesson. Okay, so the lesson was taught to you. So the teacher is something much larger than the person in front of us, right? That's so. So even today, somebody begins to say, hey, I think I found a different path. I think I found another way, And some people will take interest. In fact, we see entire industries around health and wellness and healing with central figures who have found a different way, and they want to share that. Some of them are selling it, and some of them are not. It's okay, whatever it is. If you want to buy it, you buy it. If you can't buy it, you don't. You move on. You find another way. No judgment. And for a long time, I would get very angry about supposed spiritual teachers who were charging exorbitant amounts for their workshops. But why would I allow that to bring me anger now? I think that I still will find a place in myself that thinks or feels that there's an unfortunateness there. There's a misfortune. When the only wealth that you know is money. That's a level of being poor that I don't have to deal with. I'm not so poor that all I have is money. But again, that could come to my judgments. So, okay. It's when people begin to gatekeep and keep people out who don't have money and try to hold on to healthful knowledge that's necessary and keep it from people who need it. And that's a different type of discussion. I'm totally open to having that one sometime, though. I think it's important, and I think it's important that now more than ever in the realms of healing and spiritual practices, we begin to discuss that very thing. And we're in a global pandemic here. So, yes. But that's not what this sutra is about, so I'm going to rein it in. Come back to us here. So Patanjali says to focus on this other form, the form of the teacher, the great mind who's already been freed. And the rejections to that are, why? Why would I do that? And Satchidananda comes back with this. Many people do not have that much confidence in their own hearts. Oh, how could I have such a wonderful heart with all this rubbish inside? Well, in that case, you can think of the heart of a noble person. Meditate on a heart that has given up all attachments to sense objects, on a heart that has realized the goal. If you can't imagine that your heart is full of that light, at least you can imagine it in his or her heart. The mind should be allowed to dwell on something high, something serene. That is the main idea. See? The lesson inherent in having the experience of one who is healthy is enough to show us that we can be. The experience of knowing that one is skillful is enough to show us that we can attain those skills. One of the major grievances that I have with Western religions, which is funny to say because all of these religions they come back to the beginnings and origins of human existence and the cultures, even Christianity. It's a Semitic religion. It has its roots far deeper. It certainly didn't start in a mega church in Denver, Colorado, let's say. But even in these teachings, my grievances are that the notion of being born a specific way, being born into sin, let's say. Well, when we're taught that and we're trained that, we believe that. We're raised believing that I was born not good enough. And then we generate our energy in our lives around that notion. We form ourselves around this pebble. It's like the pearl that gets covered. It's the piece of sand that gets covered that creates the pearl. And we hold that inner self there as we work around it, so we don't know it. We think that we're full of rubbish, when really we're full of pearls. And so, let's just, for a moment, shift our view of why the Christ figure came about in this story, in this religion. God comes as man to show us how we, as humans, can live. Not to show us how we can't. That would be pointless. Why would a God need to come and flex? We've seen the flexes of the Abrahamic God throughout the Bible many times. But God appearing as avatar in man gives us the ability to understand that if this man can treat people this way, so can I. If this man can respond to trouble in this way, so can I. And if this man can love as deeply as this man loves, so can I. Right? So this is Patanjali's meditating on the liberated heart. Today I chose the Buddha. I chose the Buddha because the Buddha is an easily acquired image in our mind. And for most people in the West, the Buddha represents a pretty innocuous figure. They're not a threat to very many people. And this allowed us to go into that place where we understand when we see the image of the Buddha sitting in Jin Mudra, legs crossed, eyes closed, serene. It brings us into that place in our heart. Oh, serenity. There it is. There's the Buddha. When we see the image of the happy Buddha, arms raised, dancing in joy, carefree, not tethered to the suffering of the world, but dancing upon it. We think, oh, the happy Buddha, right? When we see the image of the Buddha with the offering, holding the vase and the hand out, we think, oh, the giving Buddha. These are easily accessible ways for us to see a form that we can relate to, that we can attain to, we can achieve. So when we find ourselves in those places where we think, I just can't do this, oftentimes not focusing on the self in that moment, because right then the self is sick, the self is blind, the self is asleep, right? The self is covered over by the rubbish heap of negative thought. So don't focus on the self. It's totally okay, and in fact encouraged, to put your focus on something else for a little while. This is why we have murtis, small idols. This is why we have tapestries. This is why we have the pictures of Jesus, the cross on the wall. This is why we have pictures of our teachers on altars. This is the exact same format being used when you see, the images of politicians with their chests out, standing in the flag, waving in the background. This is the intention, is to get you to focus on something that you see as greater than you, right? And the thing about meditation is, once you realize that the form that you just pictured, the serene Buddha, the happy Buddha, the dancing Buddha, the giving Buddha, whatever it was, you just went into a piece of who you are. And you learn that no one is born this way. The Buddha was not born special. The Buddha was born a sheltered prince. What does a sheltered prince know about suffering, right? What does this rich kid know about my pain? But through years of practice and of casting away of attachments, the Buddha was born from this person. It's a practice. It's a practice. So don't be so hard on yourself. When you get angry, don't be so judgmental. Don't give up. Anger is okay. Just don't let that anger consume you. You're awake enough to know, oh, that anger was embarrassing. Let that go. Focus on the peaceful person. Right? Maybe you can see the eyes of Mother Teresa, or you can see Amma, or Gandhi, or Martin Luther King. Whoever it is that to you represents in that moment someone who has come up against anger and did not shy away. Because that's the ticket, right? That's right there. Presence is everything. Because we are so aware that we are connected, that we feel embarrassed, ashamed, or scared when our behaviors disconnect us. So the person who is a liberated heart is one who will not turn away from your anger. Isn't that so? Isn't that it? Why do we pray to Jesus? Why do we love Jesus? Because in the Christian church, we're taught that Jesus forgives. Jesus loves you no matter what. So we turn to Jesus in the times when we're at our worst. So why, in Buddhist practices, when we see ourselves going down this path of discomfort and unhealth and suffering, we feel ourselves suffering, we turn to Buddha, because Buddha was able to liberate from suffering. So then we turn to Buddha, who does not turn away from us, but stands as an example of how we can be liberated from suffering. When we feel ourselves full of rage and we want to cause pain because of the pain we're in, right? We just want to hurt something. We want to smash this system. It's so unfair. It's so unjust. All we can feel in this moment is the rage to cause destruction and cause pain to those who are causing pain to the world. It's a very real feeling, very real. Then we can turn to Martin Luther King Jr., who stood in the face of rage and hatred and was able to be loving. Okay? Even if somebody will tell you, well, that's not always true. He wasn't perfect. Of course not. Of course not. Nobody's striving for perfection here. We're just striving for presence. We're just striving for connection. So in the times when we can feel that, when we feel so hopeless that there is no winning here, there's no winning. I'm never going to win. This is just my life is miserable, and that's just the way it's going to be. We can stop meditating on ourself, because ourself in this moment is in pain, and ourself in this moment is not in the place to be present for our pain. So we meditate on the figure who can be. When you think of giving up, think of Gandhi, who didn't give up. Of course, we can have the arguments and the discussions about whether Gandhi was a good person or not. Yes, we can have that discussion. We can have all of the whatabouts in the world, right? So don't focus on Gandhi then. If we continue to seek and find excuses for why we aren't finding health, we are just solidifying our sickness. It's okay. If anything I'm saying doesn't bring you into a place of health, that's fine. Move on. Find a person that you can meditate on. Maybe it's your own mother. Maybe you meditate on the innocence of a baby, and you think of the pureness and the non-judgment of that. But the practice of meditating on the teacher is a way that we can see the path forward when we are stuck in place. That's all. That's all it is. And for any of us out there who suffer from depression, I've suffered for years. I've suffered in great depressions in the past. Great depressions. Suicidal depressions, self-harm, drug addictions, all of this. You know what it is to feel stuck. But even those of us who maybe have never had great depressions or anxieties, panic attacks, or drug addictions, you still know how it is to feel stuck. Right? I think it's part of our human conditioning. You might be in this practice, you might be meditating every day, you might be doing your breath work and your yoga, you might be using your tongue scraper and your neti pot, and you might be eating a very healthful diet of mostly fresh foods and, no animal foods, or whatever it is that you're doing. You're following the prescription. You're following the assignment, right? You know the assignment, but maybe you're feeling, this isn't working. This isn't working. I'm doing everything, man. I'm freaking vegan. I gave up caffeine. I go to bed at 8 o'clock. I don't watch TV. I meditate every day. I do all these things. And why am I still stuck? Why am I still miserable? Okay. Because you are now coming up to that part of yourself that you've been meaning to get to for years. This practice is not a promise of joy and feeling good every day. That's not what this practice promises. I'm sorry if that's what you think or if that's what you've been told. But this practice promises only one thing. That as we practice to connect to our deeper self, we will. And the thing is, when your deeper self is under a pile of the rubbish of the connections and attachments that you have, to get to it, you're going to have to work through those attachments. You're going to have to work through those connections. But maybe if we reframe it as I get to. Finally, I get to the place that was causing me discomfort. That was causing me suffering. When I come upon that stuck place, that's not me failing. That's my success. success. My success, and today I was able to get to that place where I got stuck. And that place of being stuck, I've been there many times and I wasn't aware. But today I knew it. And today I could look at it and I could sit in front of it and I could sit at the feet of it and I could observe that stuckness and I could name it and I could know that's where this stuckness began. Okay. The stuckness for you may be the deep-seated feeling that you're not good enough. You don't work hard enough. You don't get it the way other people do. And that's your stuckness. Okay, you're there now. You're feeling that. Oh, my discipline's crap. I don't work hard enough and I'm just not getting this meditation thing. Good. Sit there. Sit there until you can say to that thing, I'm not turning away from you. I'm not giving up. It's okay to let that moment go. It's okay. I'll be right here. Let that moment go. It's just a moment. It's just a moment, a thing that happened. A moment when some seed that blew into your mind took root. But now you're there. Now you're at that root. When you're feeling stuck, that's a root. That's a root that you can observe. And in the observation, you can recognize this is where I've been stuck. Okay. I forgive myself. I forgive myself for telling myself for all these years that I wasn't good enough. I forgive myself for allowing that thought to take deep root in who I am. And it's okay. And I don't need to pay a penance, and I don't need to make it up to myself. I don't need to do any of that. It's just done now. It's okay. And the meditation on the teacher brings this lesson. Because the teacher's not turning away from you. In your meditation, did the Buddha turn away and run? Oh, this person's fucked. I'm gone. No. And that's not that the Buddha loves you because you're special. No, it's because you love you. And you're just now learning this. Right? So if you're watching this right now, from wherever you are, the comment boxes are open. You can use the chat in either Journey Home Meditation or on my Facebook page, if you're on YouTube or if you're on Twitch or Twitter. And actually, I don't know if Twitter has a chat box feature, but you can comment. You can comment back and forth with one another. And in fact, I can do a chat overlay. So from now on, any comments that any of you leave while we're watching, you guys can communicate with each other and with me. We can start building the Sangha, the community supporting one another in these practices. I think it's very important. This isn't just about me blathering on every morning for 45 minutes to an hour. This is about all of us propping each other up and being the teacher for each other in the time when we can't sit with our own selves any longer. You see, because that's the lesson today. That's Patanjali's lesson. Vîtarâgavayam va cittam. By concentrating on a great soul's mind, which is totally freed from attachment to sense objects. That doesn't necessarily have to be the greatest soul. Maybe it's just wherever you're feeling stuck in that moment, you just need to see the face of someone who's not believing your story that you are worthless. Simple as that. Now, the problem that I see in my life is oftentimes I would say to someone, man, I feel pretty worthless right now. And they would go, that's ridiculous. You're not worthless. Jeez, come on. Get over yourself. Stop. Okay, sure, there might be truth there. But the problem there is that's not what I'm needing in the moment. And I think it is. I go, thanks, friend. Oh, I needed that. I just needed that. Okay, so you got through that moment. But really, if you had that person who said to you, are you worthless? Because I don't see it, but I'm here for it. I don't see worthlessness in you. But it's okay for you to say it. Say it. I'm going to sit here silently while you work it out. But I'm not going anywhere. That's the kind of care that we can provide to one another. When someone's angry and they're venting, and they're frustrated, and they might even be saying ugly things, things that maybe hurt your feelings. If we can have the wherewithal in that moment, if you in that moment are strong enough and centered enough in yourself to be able to deal with this, and sometimes we're not. Sometimes we are not able to handle anybody else's pain and suffering in that moment. We can have compassion for it, but say, I can't stand here for this. I'm not the Buddha, you know, and we have to step away. But if you have the ability to stand for it, allow someone to get it out. Don't take it personally. There's nothing anyone can say about you that is you unless you let it be. So let this person vent, let this person get it out. And sometimes that's all they need. To have you hear them say the ugly things and not reject them for it. You don't have to prop them up. You don't have to agree with them. Oh, you're right. No, you're right. They're wrong. They're the bad ones. You're good. That's not required. Just, okay, I hear you. I hear you. You're struggling. You're suffering. Try it. Try being there sometime when someone else struggles without responding. Just confirming to them that you're not going anywhere. See how it shifts. And for you, if you're the one suffering, see how it shifts if you have a friend that does that for you. And I think that all stems from this central practice. I think all of this is part of meditating on the teacher. So I've gone on for quite some time now. No one's using the chat yet, and that's okay. So in the future, every day, when we have the contemplations, I'll do the chat overlay. I'll have the chat be able to be visible in the screen, and then anyone who wants to share. This would be this is a feature that I didn't have the option of, that I didn't know the option of before. Now I'm starting to get a little more accustomed to, or I'm getting more used to this platform. So I'm starting to dive into some of the more advanced features. So I'll leave that open in the future. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey home today. I didn't even realize how much I needed this one today until I was here. So obviously, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Patanjali. My hands are together in the recognized position of gratitude and prayer. My gratitude today is for the teacher. The teacher who has the presence, and the presence is the lesson. Even just the presence. The presence is the lesson. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you to all of my teachers. And thank you to all of your teachers. And my prayer today is that may all find a way to untangle. May we all find a way to untangle. All right, music in the beginning today was, of course, the lovely Jane Venter with her track Loka Samastaha Sukinoho Bhavantu. We've played this track many times on these morning sessions. It's just beautiful, and it's a beautiful way to come together and breathe. And speaking of coming together, I'm on multiple platforms with Journey Home Meditation. So follow Journey Home Meditation. I think it's at Journey Home 108 on Twitter. Meditation wouldn't fit, so Journey Home 108 on Twitter. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, all the places. So yeah, let's connect through these places. And I want to say a special thank you to Deborah Thornton, who became our first Patreon patron, our first financial supporter. It means the world to me that she would take her time and put her resources towards this project that I so strongly believe in. And yeah, you can check out the Patreon as well if you'd like. That support helps keep these nuts and bolts together so that we can continue to share these teachings. And I also offer one-on-one services and small group services. And that's another way that I support this venture with Journey Home Meditation, paying the bills, keeping the lights on, all that. And so maybe you're looking for some personal services, or you have a need for a teacher, a meditation teacher, to come into a small group. I work with all sorts of people. I'm licensed, bonded, and yeah, background checked and all that. So I can work with children, elders. I can work with anyone. And I would love to. So reach out to me, journeyhomemeditation@gmail.com. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Satnam.